Hello there. I'm Ashley. I'm 18 and an only child and a homeschooler. I know, it's crazy. Now, I first learned about God when I was 3 because my Nana had just died. My parents had mentioned to me that she was now with God in heaven. It really interested me that when we die, we get to be with God and I could see my Nana again. So from that point on, I've believed in God, but I didn't really know Him. We moved to Vernon a year later and checked out a few churches when I was older. We found Grace Bible Church, which we started attending regularly when I was about 7. I never liked having to sit and listen to the sermon, and I didn't like kids' church either, so I usually end up hiding in the Sunday school room until class had started. When I was 9 years old, my grandma sat me down and asked me if I'd ever given my heart to Christ. It says in Romans that we've all sinned, and that has separated us from God. And that sin means that we deserve death. But God sent Jesus to die for our sins instead. But if we declare with our mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in our hearts that He died for our sins, then everyone who calls in the name of the Lord will be saved. It's so amazing that Jesus would die for me. And I was so excited to let Jesus into my life. I decided that I wanted to be a Christian, and I prayed with my grandma. But I just called myself a Christian. I didn't take it seriously at all. I very rarely prayed unless I wanted something from God, and I didn't like church very much. I only liked helping with my mom in Sunday school. Eventually, my parents and I stopped going to church when I was 12. I'd only show up for special events, and when I was helping in Sunday school, I still didn't enjoy church. Now, when I was 13, it was time for me to join the senior youth, and I did not have an easy time. I had maybe 2 friends, and other than that, I felt pretty alone. I wasn't ever chosen to be picked as a partner in any games, and I usually had to be paired with one of the helpers because I wasn't even close to anyone in my grade, even if I'd known them from the church for years. So I felt crazy alone and many times just considered not going. By 14, I'd met some friends from school. And yes, homeschoolers can meet friends from school because it's online. So even if youth was still lonely, I could always text them while I was there, which meant I was even more closed off from everyone at youth. But in December, my school friends had started talking behind my back, and it definitely really hurt, and I was alone again. But that was what I needed to finally do the right thing, and call out to God. I came home from youth and sat on my bed, and reflected on everything that had happened. Youth was difficult because I couldn't hide on my phone, and I had to face how I didn't have friends there. So while laying there on my bed, I just felt really miserable. And honestly considered never going back to youth since I didn't enjoy being there. So it was then that I cried out to God and I unloaded all of my burdens onto Him. I know it might be hard to believe, but almost immediately I felt a calmness fall over me. I felt full of peace, comfort, love. It was just exactly what I needed. That Sunday, my grandparents did the usual thing of asking me if I'd like to go to church with them, and I said yes. It was a few weeks of church when Pastor Pat shared a sermon that actually spoke to me about how sometimes we'll feel alone, like we have no friends, but God will come in and remind us that He's always there, and we're never alone. We just have to rely on Him. After that, church wasn't boring anymore. I was actually learning and enjoyed knowing more about God. From that moment on, I recommitted my life to God and started going to church again. It wasn't easy right away, but it made a change in my life. Youth wasn't easy either, and it took another couple years, but by 16, I was able to be part of the group and talk to people. I was still very socially awkward, but that's just being a teenager. So that same year, I applied to Faith Mission Bible Camp, and that was a big step out of my comfort zone that God had pushed me in. God also challenged me in other ways that year. It started in July, but in October, I had a very bad stomach illness. None of my doctors ever really figured it out or know what was wrong with it, but what was really unfortunate was I didn't even give it to God till after Christmas. I struggled alone because I thought I could handle it. I thought it would just go away, but it didn't. I had hospital tests and asked everyone for help but God. It wasn't until I acknowledged that only God could help me and that I'm weak without His strength. And then I was able to get through it in April. So 2018 was a tough year, and God worked on me a lot. But when I was 17 just last year, I went back to camp and grew in my relationship with Christ. I've made so many great friends and have had so many fun experiences. I got baptized in December, and I can see so many moments where God has been with me. Being a teenager sure isn't easy, but God helped me through every bit of it. I no longer feel alone. I know I can go out of my comfort zone, and I know who I can rely on when I need that strength to get through the hard times. I'm 18 now, and there's so much more ahead of me. And I'm glad that Jesus is by my side every second of the way. To end, here's a verse I found really important to remember. Philippians 4:6. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Thank you so much for listening to my testimony. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'd love to talk to anyone. Thank you.